According to new Reuters Ipsos research, a plurality of Americans, 46%, have hardly any confidence at all in the press. This, of course, is part of a growing trend in the public, losing faith in institutions as a whole, but the media in particular has taken a hit. 68% believe that reporters very often or sometimes report on something before learning all the facts. I actually kind of agree with that. But Democrats are more likely to put their trust in the media. 42% of Dems say the media does not have a bias, but only 10% of Republicans say the same. Mallory, this was your company's findings. Tell us more.
Well, I think, Crystal, one of the main things that we know from this poll is that Americans writ large don't have a lot of confidence in, actually the way the question was worded was the people running the press.
Oh, wow.
So it's not just the institution.
Take it personally.
Right. It's personal.
Gotcha.
But they're actually, when you go and dig a little bit deeper into trust in institutions, what I found particularly interesting was as we see in many issues of the day today, there is a huge partisan divide on who trusts specific mainstream media outlets.
Let me guess. Republicans trust Fox News, and
that's it.
And Democrats trust a more broad range of outlets.
Right. So we asked specifically about a number of outlets. And when I say mainstream media, I mean mostly TV, so your ABC, NBC, CBS, all of those, CNN. And a majority of Democrats say that they trust these outlets most of the time, whereas a majority of Republicans say that they do not trust these outlets. The exception, of course, is Fox News. One thing also interestingly is that Republicans are split on ESPN.
Really?
Funny enough.
I totally understand that. That's huge. The ESPN has had a real problem with talking about the politics, especially the politics of race.
Right.
And once you start talking about that, whoa, everything.
The national anthem situation.
It breaks down about a third, and a third say that they don't know.
Right.
So there's still a third of Republicans who are okay with ESPN.
I think Mallory brings up a really important point here. When we talk about trust in the media, I think people get, and they have a different impression of what the media is, right? If we're talking about CNN, MSNBC, and Fox, that's one thing. That's an entertainment business, right?
True.
Their business model is not the same as the New York Times and the Washington Post. And by the way, their business model is not the same as the Hill newspaper, where bias is actively discouraged in every in every mainstream newsroom that's not doesn't have a partisan bent, but it never infects anything at the Hill, at least on the editorial side downstairs from where we're sitting right here. So we all have it's a segmented industry. It would be like somebody saying, I have a really crummy roofer, so never trust your plumber because they're both contractors. No, they're totally different businesses.
Right.
And that's and so and I'm glad you broke it out the way you did, but I think that people have a lot more trust in especially their local news organizations than they would in some of these big national ones. But when we say media, people sort of default to these national cable or news outlets that have an editorial bent by design. That's how they make their money.
Well, and I think describing them as infotainment is important for people to remember. They're about their bottom line. This is not like a public interest project. They're about the bottom line.
And we asked about that. And I do just want to point out that even though we broke out several media outlets, the findings are generally the same, right? Most Democrats, like I said, trust all of these institutions by name. Most Republicans don't. However, we did ask about whether mainstream media is more focused on making money than telling the truth.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
What did you find?
Nearly 8 in 10 Republicans feel that is in fact the case. And though a majority of Democrats disagree, you still have over 40% of Democrats saying that the mainstream media is more interested in making money.
Yeah.
So there is a sense, again, that they're out there for their bottom line.
Interesting. I mean, Reed, I feel like this is one of the extreme distrust of the right of any institution other than Fox News is one of the most important underlying dynamics of our politics today that we probably don't talk enough about.
Yeah, and there is also a growing number of outlets from which you can get your news. The vast majority of Americans, when they're finding news. They don't find it at thehill.com or
Right.
nytimes.com.
Right.
They find it on Facebook. They find it
Right.
on Twitter. They find it on their social media accounts, wherever it
YouTube.
is. And that can equate something like a Breitbart with a more mainstream outlet, even if it's a more conservative outlet, the Dallas Morning News or something like that. And obviously the standards at one are not the same as the standards at the other. And so that I think conflates a lot of this as well.
And Mallory, of course, the president has aggressively attacked many members of the press as enemy of the people. And of course, fake news is heard all the time and in his tweets all the time. Has that moved the needle in terms of how Republicans feel about the press? Or were they already skeptical?
Well, I think they were already skeptical, and we did some polling before this latest poll that was released for the Columbia Journalism Review. We did some polling last year where we actually asked about sentiments toward the media and the press, and we found that nearly 1 in 3 agree with the statement that the media is the enemy of the people. So that's sort of been percolating, I think, for quite a while. Going back to this poll, though, speaking of the president and his attacks on specific members of the media, again,
Right.
this is personal. We're talking about people behind the press and reporters. One of the most interesting things I found from this poll was that 60% of Americans say that reporters either very often or sometimes are paid by their sources.
What?
So
That's just
I'm apparently
bonkers.
doing this
You're doing
wrong.
it wrong.
Like,
Reed, you got to get it together, buddy. You're missing out on a whole side gig here.
Right. Look, just for the record, like we are supposed to buy everything for them. You know, they're like,
Right.
hey, if we go out for a coffee, we don't get to accept coffee from somebody.
Right.
We, buy coffee.
But
for them,
apparently
things like that.
that's, reporters have this whole side hustle that, according to most Americans.
I'm doing it wrong.
Guys, stick around. We have one more quick thing coming up. What states' residents feel the best about their own life situations? I need to know that information. That is next on What America's Thinking.